Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Pet Connection podcast, where every third Wednesday we celebrate our furry, feathery, and scaly friends. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Pet Connection. And so happy to have Angela back on the show. As always, Angela Laws is the community manager of Trusted House Sitters. And as many of you know, Nancy and I travel the country. We travel full-time, documenting parks and public lands, gathering stories about destinations, but we pet sit as we do it. And that is all through Trusted House Sitters. It's one of the, I would say, a life-changing thing that happened for us as full-time travelers. And even if we weren't full-time, we'd be doing it again. You know, I think we may not have gone full-time travel if we knew about them before, but we're never going to stop traveling. But Angela is also obviously a pet sitter. She's been doing it for a number of years, way ahead of Nancy and I, but together we really experience a lot of things that happen with pets. Pet communication, you know, there's just so much that we all experience. I think the thing we have in common, the most importantly, is the care and love of pets. Everything from tortoises and guinea pigs and dogs and cats and birds to horses and donkeys. I mean, we've done a little bit of it all, and Nancy's done a lot with actual wildlife. So it's very exciting to always have Angela back on the show. She's in Scotland today. Last time she was, I think, in Australia, Australia and then New Zealand. And today we are going to focus on backyards for your pets because March 19th today is National Backyard Day in the States. But hey, how are you doing, Angela? Welcome back.
Hi, Lisa. It's always a pleasure. And yeah, you're traveling, I'm traveling, but the best way to travel for us is to get that pet companionship and connect with those like-minded people. And it's always, always a pleasure to be here and talking about our favorite subject.
Pets. And you're in Scotland now, right? You're back home in Scotland?
Yeah, back home in Scotland, been fighting that dreaded jet lag for about a week and a half. It's actually quite cruel. I mean, we had the most amazing time. We were over there for 2 months, and New Zealand is amazing. Australia is. The people are great. But getting back here is a long trek. It's worth it though, and you know what? If jet lag is the only problem I've got to deal with at the moment, I consider myself pretty lucky.
And you know, the thing is, no matter where you go in the world, I mean, Nancy and I have lived around in, Africa, South Africa, Kenya, England. We didn't live in Scotland though, but we do love Scotland, and Mexico and the Isle of Man. Not the Isle of Man. That's where our ancestry is, but we lived in Guernsey area. In the Channel Islands, there you go. But pets are part of all of it. And I think what we're talking about today, it may be National Backyard Day here in the States, but this is something to be aware of no matter where you're living. The backyard for your dog is so important. And as pet sitters, and they say, oh, you could just let the dogs run outside. I'm like, let me go see. First thing is like, let me go see and check the fence and what size are the dogs? Do they dig? Do they do that? So backyards, it's a special place for pets and for kids to hang out, for adults. I think during COVID, we really started to understand the importance of a backyard. And even if it's just a patio that you have, maybe you live in a condo or an apartment or a flat, excuse me, Angela's on the show, a flat. You still want to have that area be something where you can hang out, your pet can hang out with you, and be safe so everyone's happy. And I think that's the most important thing about a backyard is safety, right?
Oh, yeah. And it's being able to get outside and we're talking about dogs and cats as well and all animals because, being outside does us good. It does them good. But yes, there is this need for safety. And especially if you're welcoming a new pet into your home, and they're little ones, or it doesn't matter what the age is, but, when you bring them inside, make sure that space is safe. I mean, we say backyards in America, it's gardens or wherever it is, it's that space. And the first thing of all especially with dogs, is to make sure it's safe and secure and they can't get out. And, sort of like you say, check the fencing because they dig and they jump and they, all of those
Hmm.
things. So make sure that the space that you have, and if you've got a big space and you can't fence all of it, then just fence some of it, just make
Hmm.
sure that there's that secure space to let them be a pet, let them be an animal. But yeah, there is a lot to consider with having that safe backyard.
Some people have those collars that zap dogs, like the electric thing, and one lady did that with her dog because of the backyard, and the guy who came to do it put the electric collar thing on, actually zapped her dog, and her dog has been traumatized its whole life. Doesn't
Oh,
come out of the bed, hides underneath the bed. And the only way they can get the dog outside to go potty is to have the other dog's friends come over. And so
wow.
it's just a thought to put out there. And the collars can work. To me, it's like, oh, somebody got zapped. It's not the end of the world, but for big dogs that need to run, I know, and that's a whole thing that's a family conversation you all have. But so some people do that, but you've got to be aware that keep the battery on and anything can change, and we live in a world now with hurricanes, tornadoes, wildfires, all kinds of circumstances, blizzards. So I would say when you think you can just let your dogs be outside, that I would really say, yeah, you can, make the best of your backyard. You want your dogs to be able to have like a certain amount of freedom. If you're going to lock them out there, really be aware of what can happen out there. Anything can happen,
Oh,
when you're
yeah,
not home. I would
yeah.
never think of some dogs can go in and out and they're elder and it'd be a little different. Every situation is different. Every single situation, every household is different. Every animal is different. But um, an external influence can affect what's going on in your backyard. So be aware of that. Do you have people that are loud next door that are going to entice your dog to go through the fence? Maybe it's a busy street and your dog suddenly gets out, or someone like, hey, and the dog would never normally get out, but suddenly he's like, hey, let's feed the dog this. So sometimes when we talk about our backyard, we have to look at training and that communication between your pet and you, but also look at what the external factors are, not just
Well,
within.
there's also the point as well that dog theft is up, and dog
Mm,
theft. You've got some of these organized gangs, and they are because there's so much money involved that are actually stealing dogs to order. Somebody's going to say, and it doesn't matter whether you've got whatever breed it is or whatever kind of dog it is. There's always going to be, there may be somebody who just, whether or not they're out there to do this and they're doing it in that way, but there's also those who just think they're just going to let the dog out. So you have to be very mindful of safety, not just safety from the view of keep the pet safe, but safety from, outside influences, as you say, not necessarily plants and everything that's going on in the garden or the yard, but externally, if your yard is easily accessible to outside people, you need to
mm.
be careful.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because it happens. We had when we lived in, I think it was when we lived in Kenya, someone fed our dogs chicken bones and one
Mm-hmm.
got really sick, almost died. Um, I think one did because chicken bones kill dogs. I mean, they're just the way the bone is bendy is not good. If the dog doesn't chew a bone all the way through, can make a dog choke. So chicken bones are like a no-no. But it's also like, hey, your plants, and we'll get into all of that. But I also wanted to say, you talked about before we went on air is vaccinations. And that's something that we, can easily forget vaccinations. And hey, um, fleas and ticks that's a big deal too. Lyme
Yeah.
disease is going around. Dogs do get tick disease, a tick fever and all of that. And fleas, oh my gosh, none of us want fleas. And then your dog comes and snuggles in bed with you and says, hey, I got some friends on my back and I'm going to give them to you.
Yeah. Absolutely. They pick up anything and everything in the garden, and you actually don't know. And those vaccinations are really important, as I say, for all of your pets. But if you're welcoming a new pet into the house, into the home, just make sure that is covered as well. And also, sort of when you're letting them out into the garden, so many things to watch, like, standing water. If you've had rain and that water is standing there, dogs will go and drink from puddles. And as we say, don't let them do that outside, but don't let them do them in your garden too, because you don't know what's coming out of the soil. There's all of those things to tick. And we've got some great articles on Trusted House Sitters blog that will help you through this. But I think more than anything else, and it's having this conversation, Lisa, is creating that awareness. Because if you hear us and you hear this podcast and you hear what we're talking about, then you'll start looking into it, and there'll be other things that we perhaps don't mention that you'll come across. And it's all about keeping those beloved pets that you've got safe and not having to go to the emergency room and not having to go to the vet because there's something that could have been prevented.
What I also love about this conversation is that a lot of us live in communities where it's dog friendly, right? So you may go take your pup out to brunch with your friends, and maybe you're at a restaurant and the restaurant has its own flower pots, and those may not be pet friendly. They may go, oh, we're fine with dogs coming in and we'll give them a bowl of water, but may not have gone to the steps that you may do at home of having a poison-free flower environment, right? So we're at that stage. It's spring and we're planting and flowers are out depending on where you are in the country and around the world. But what you plant is a big deal. And maybe you're taking your dog to a friend's house and the friend is like, Christmas time, we always say, watch out for poinsettias. I've seen cats get into it and like, oh, this is my new, you got kittens or dogs get into the poinsettia plant that everyone gives each other at Christmas. You might be taking your furry loved one to, the vet for Christmas. So you don't want to have to do that. So
no, exactly.
And a lot of people really mean well. So, let's start with the actual backyard. Always have water because dogs run around, cats run around. Clean, fresh water that is in a place of shade is good, and always have a place of shade for dry. You want to store your animals in a cool, dry place. Right?
That's a good way of describing it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Have a place where they can go. Like you're talking about the water. It's true. That's what I'm saying. We have all these things happen in the yard and we've got hurricanes and stuff happening, wildfires, all these dramatic things. So I would say also the backyard is a place to train. Wouldn't you say, Angela, too? To train your communication. I like to actually, before I take dogs for a walk that I don't know, take them for a walk in their backyard on a leash.
Yeah.
I know it looks weird to everybody, but if we can't make it through that, we ain't going out.
No, and that's also the place to check on recall, because pet parents will say, oh, their recall is really great. And they may even demonstrate that. But you know what? Your voice is different. If you're a sitter, your voice is different to those pet parents. Mm-hmm. And you could think that you are confident and you're going to have this because every other pet you've got, but there could be that one pet that actually goes, do you know what? I don't know your voice. I'm not going to come to you. And you need to know that. So all of this is helpful, and it's based on safety, and it's based on knowing what to expect when you go outside of the yard. And Lisa, you said about the water. Absolutely. But please, please, please make sure that water is clean and changed often. And sort of so that they have access to clean water.
Yeah, and here's the thing too. Oh boy. I wasn't going to get into it, but I'm going to. We have all these communities across America that are in homeowner associations, and this is the manicured look, and everyone's going to look this way. and we have a gardening thing that comes out and does everyone's yards, and that's that. And they use fertilizers, and
Yeah.
there's insecticides, and oh, it's supposedly pet friendly. Really? Why do so many dogs in America have to have allergy pills?
Hmm.
What is going on? I mean, animals are now taking human medications more and more. We've learned about pet food, and I see pet parents really trying hard to give them the best food they can, the actual pure food, not byproducts. And so we see a lot of that, which is fantastic. But I'm going to say, what is in the grass making your dog sick? Sometimes it's the species of grass. Maybe it shouldn't be that kind of grass you have. Maybe you can change it. Maybe you can't. Maybe sometimes there's this grass that just, I think it's buffalo grass, that drives everyone bonkers in a certain area. But once it's out there, it's like an invasive, and it really affects your pets. So sometimes it's like, hey, pull out the lawn maybe and put in a ground cover or something that's okay for your dogs. But it's what you're using in your garden. Be wary of that being a poison to your dogs or an allergen, and what the water. So when we talk about water, like, if water is pooling up somewhere, half of the time it could be having your neighbor's fertilizer in that pool of water, and your
Oh, yeah.
dog wants to go and drink it. So it's you want to be as pure as you can, and try and watch your dogs going to drink water which looks natural but may not be, and you wonder why your dog's stomach is upset.
Yeah, and when you're talking about, sort of what's in the ground and the grass and what's in the soil and what they're spraying, I took our Holly as a puppy to North Africa. We were living in Tunisia at the time, and she had this rash come up on her stomach. And she was like, 3, 4 months old, and we didn't know what this rash was. And veterinary care at that time in where we were living was not that great. But fortunately, we had a veterinary sort of, what can I've lost my word, a student, a veterinary student in our daughter. She was at the Royal Vet College in London. And we actually were fortunate enough that we could send some photographs and some sort of write up about it. And it was actually what was in the grass that was causing the allergy in Holly. Her stomach was so red and so sore. And that could happen to any. And you know what? The other thing too is when you let them out in the garden, please, please, please make sure that you clean up your poop. Absolutely, all the time, and keep it really, really clean. And another thing too that we had an experience of with a friend of mine. If you've got a swimming pool, please, please pet-proof your swimming pool.
That's massive. I have that here.
Child-proof, but pet-proof your swimming pool. You could have a dog jump in and be attracted to getting into the water and not be able to get out. And if there's nobody there to help them, they will soon tire, and you could finish up with a real tragedy on your hands. Mm-hmm. So be very, very careful if you've got pools in your backyard.
It's always good to be there on hand, just like you would a kid, because anything could happen. You don't know. Maybe a snake got in the pool and now your dog's going after a snake in the pool. And that happens, by the way. Yeah. By the way, rattlesnakes do swim in the pool. And that's another thing. Snakes. Okay. So many of us in the Southwest and the West know this. Even North Carolina, where we are, like one area is known for copperheads. That's a thing. Snakes are a thing. And I've walked dogs with snakes. And I'm going to tell you, I don't care if it's a non-poisonous or a poisonous, you turn your dog around and go. Here, I walked a dog out here where we are in North Carolina, and 2 little dogs. And there was a rat snake. Now, the rat snakes are one of the fastest snakes, and they go after eggs and things like that. They're harmless. However, if you get bitten, it can cause an infection. So that's where I always want to tell people, it's not poisonous. Well, a bite from any animal, a squirrel or anything, can cause an infection, right? And it's traumatic to the animal and to you if you're walking the dog. But our backyards are also a great place for other animals, which is a good thing. And, you can have a coexistence thing happen. And I've witnessed it for years in different places all over the world that things can be coexistent, but your dogs and your cats should have, again, have that training, right? And that communication, that language. So if something happens, your dog or your cat knows. Now, cat's a little difficult, but they can still learn. There's a balance to be had, with wildlife in your backyard because it can happen. Squirrels, to this day, people are always scared of squirrels, thinking, oh, they're going to have rabies. Do you know that there's not one incident of rabies of a squirrel biting anyone or anything in this country at all? And it's just like a fallacy. But, you've got to be careful. Possums and we all have raccoons. We have coyotes, depending on where you live. So you have to understand the timing of when these animals come in and out. Maybe your cats shouldn't be indoor, outdoor, or maybe only on certain times when you're there. Some people put cats on a leash. I know that sounds nuts, but if you want your cat to have the joy of being outdoors, maybe that's the way. Or it could be your cat was feral for a while and is really part of the outdoor. Everyone's different. Every situation is different, but snakes, I highly recommend people in areas with snake habitats, like major snake habitats. If you're in Raleigh, North Carolina, you may want to listen. San Diego, Arizona, you can take your dogs to snake training school. It helps, but you can't just do the school and then not keep in practice, right, Angela? Like whatever you do with a dog in training, you've got to continue that so that it is a normal language day to day.
Yeah, absolutely. But you also get snakes in Bombay, India, because that's where we live.
Gosh.
And we had those in our garden, and Holly actually found them. So be watch. The other thing too is we talked about coyotes and knowing when they come out, and also they're predators, as we know. And if you've got small dogs or cats or small animals, also, you've got that beautiful bird in the sky called an eagle.
Yeah.
They are hunters. So, yeah, I mean, we don't want to frighten you all to death. We don't want to do that at all. But it's just be mindful and be aware. And as I say, if this conversation does nothing but actually heighten your awareness as to, what the backyard is to be enjoyed, but it's also something to be mindful about and something to be safe and a safe place for the whole family. Your your pets, your children. It needs to be, it can be that safe and joyous place where they can laze around on sunny summer days and just enjoy being outside and not being inside all the time.
I just say we have to be aware,
Yeah, absolutely.
Some people forget, and even in the desert, right? They forget how cold the temperatures get in the desert at winter and leave their dogs chained up to a tree. Don't do that. Like, come on. It's freezing cold. Being frozen cold or super hot in the sun, chained to a tree, that is something that is a no-no. That goes for horses. Everybody needs shelter from the elements. They need a place to go. And you're talking about the birds in the sky, like even hawks, watch it. Have a place where a dog can scoot in, maybe not all the way into the house, but if you have like a shelter or like a veranda. Do they have verandas in this country? I think I've gone on to your side now. Patios?
Decks.
Oh, yeah. But have something sheltered over there. Just like us. We want an umbrella in the sun at a certain point. So do your animals. And their fur is different and their paws. If you have all concrete outside or gravel, as Arizona loves to do, it's going to be hotter, and your dogs, when it's over 70 degrees, you need to start wondering about the effect on the paws of your dog. I think it's 82 when it's bad. I have to look that up, but that's the same in our backyard. So always have a nice, cool spot. You want room temperature somewhere in your yard for your animals, and watch for that. But yeah, critters. And most of us these days are starting to understand the importance of native plants and also allowing like wildlife to be part of our coexistence, right? And coexistence is the key word. So that means, hey, you know what? This is the time of day when critters are looking for water before they go to bed. This is not the time to let the dog out. You know what I mean? So have that balance, maybe. And, if
Hmm.
you're not into that, then you're not into it. But for those who are trying to balance pets and wildlife, they really do kind of balance themselves out, but you still have to keep a watchful eye depending on your animal because everyone's animal is different. Some dogs are just, they're farm dogs. They understand how to be one with nature. They're all nature, but we did domesticate the dog. I still can't. Nancy always talks to little dogs, the ones that we're taking care of right now. She goes, "You are a wolf. Do you know you're a wolf?" And you
Absolutely.
look at these little Maltese poodles going, "You're a wolf." And they look at us going, "No, I'm not." "Oh, yes, you are. You just forgot." We did this to them. We took them away from being wolf. So they have those instincts and they're always balancing out like how much wolf am I? You know?
Well, they were wolves until they realized we had couches, and now they've come inside and they've got
I mean,
they've
the
got their
dog's life is
comfort.
for real, man. I
But
mean,
you know
come
what?
on.
But Lisa, you were talking about the sun and paws and absolutely, and perhaps there are some pet parents out there who don't realize that if you've got a light colored animal, if you've got, even if we're looking at horses as well, that actually they can get sunburn and they can get skin
Mm,
cancer. And so, it's wise to actually take precaution, and you can use, sunscreen on them. But, and also we're talking about, if we're talking about heat and we're talking about, backyards, we're also talking about flies. We're also talking about all of those things that actually buzz our animals and can actually affect them, and fly strike and etc. So just be very, very mindful that, you don't just open the door and say, go and leave them for as long as you feel you want to, because that's not being, that's not giving them the best of your backyard. That's actually giving them, too much of your backyard that you need to actually monitor.
I love that. There's a lot of sets. I always look outside before you let them out. Look
Yeah.
outside. Oh, and also know if you have an indoor, outdoor pet door kind of thing, be aware of that because sometimes at night you might hear something else come in. Just saying,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah. Get one that you program and can be locked at night.
there's certain things, letting dogs in and out, it's great. And again, every situation is different and every pet is different. So, you take what from this conversation, take what fits you, right? But some
Yeah.
areas, I mean, it's like you put those, you must lock the pet door. And, there was one set where suddenly a possum came in and started eating the cat food. And then the cats got upset. Everyone was fighting in the house because there was a drama. And we figured it out. Oh, the possum woke up. All right, time to close the pet door at night and make sure the cats are in, close it off. They've got litter boxes. So for the next few nights, we're doing that. Eventually, the possum moves on. And then a month later, the possum will try again and repeat, So you can go back to normal, but sometimes you just have to close it up and your animals need to know that, and you have to be prepared for that. So that's again, it's that communication, I think, is with everything. You have a great article on trustedhousesitters.com with a great one on the blog side. And everyone, I'll link it in the episode notes about what is harmful to pets. And I'm going to tell you, I know, I mean, some of these I really didn't realize, like asparagus, fern, cyclamen. How many of us have cyclamen in the garden? Daffodils,
I know the list is really long,
delphinium,
and
amaryllis,
yeah,
lilies,
and
foxglove.
it
Oh,
really is.
hyacinth bouquet would be mad. Hyacinths, hydrangeas, ivy. And this is something to know about when you walk your dogs, because dogs want to put their nose and chew on stuff, Maybe it's a bug on the plant they're going for, like lily of the valley and lupin. Oh my gosh, some of these things that I just, lupin is like a wild normal plant. Morning glories. Oleander is one I've always known, but rhododendrons. And so rhubarb, no rhubarb pie for dogs, sadly. Sweet pea. Gosh, tulips. This is pretty
No,
sad,
I know
actually.
tulips are poisonous to cats, and people put them in their homes. And yeah, I mean, this is a really comprehensive list. And as we said, we don't want to frighten everybody to death. However, you need to be aware of what, because you can save yourself an unnecessary trip to the veterinarian, and an unnecessary upset for your animal, just by being aware and looking at this. And as I say, it is a comprehensive list and far too long for us to go through here. And it's seasonal as well, whatever your plants that you plant and around, and even those that you've got inside. It's not just what's in the yard, it's what you bring home and put into vases and for display. So just be really very, very careful. And all you've got to do is just go to the website, look at the blog, and just keep it on hand, and just go, yeah, okay, I'll tick that box. And now I'm being a good pet parent.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Some are worse than others. I mean, peace lilies. I mean, I did not know. I didn't know. So houseplants too. It's a good list for houseplants for you to be aware of. But man, wisteria, really? Oh, I love a wisteria plant. That's sad. Or even if you have them poisonous, make sure you're not letting your dog eat them. You know,
Yeah.
they can be around if you are present with your dog being outside, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, do that. And I will say this, if you grow for your cats that go outside, they do love catnip being grown naturally in the soil. And we had a cat he had a catnip patch, and he owned his catnip patch, and no one was allowed near it. But he was so proud, and he loved his catnip patch. He would go outside just for that, and that was his, and that was that. No dog was allowed. No, it was his catnip patch. So when you're looking for growing things, look at things like that are good for him. It's like it's happy. They feel like they've been somebody did something for them. Which is nice. So there's a lot of things we can do, and it's fun to have. You were talking about water and pools and things like that, Angela. But sometimes those little tiny blow up pools that people put in the yard for little
Oh
kids, toddlers,
yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
dogs love that too. They
They
love,
do.
like, if a Labrador, sometimes having a nice cool thing and playing with the hose depending on your water situation, obviously. But I know dogs who love to play in the water. They love it. Hose with the hose water.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
have some fun. The backyard is for fun. It
Yep.
is. And the
Yep.
dogs are part of it. If you're playing volleyball in the backyard, let the dogs be part of it, right? That's part of it. Backyards and barbecues. Don't turn your back on the meat on the barbecue. We
No,
know
no.
we know dogs are going to get it. Yeah. And if they did, they scored. They did it. You turned your back, they won. It's kind of a game, isn't it? Like, if you're going to do a
Yeah, and
barbecue.
that's absolutely right. And barbecue safety is so important as well. Don't leave bones, don't leave garbage bags full of garbage at the end of a barbecue. Leave it out there and think, oh, I'll get that in the morning. No, 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 because your dog is likely to get it at night. And so, make
Mm.
sure you clear up, just as you would for any member of the family that you have to look after. But make sure, yeah, barbecue safety is so important, and picnic safety whenever you're eating, whenever you go out. Just be very, very aware of just how quickly a dog can sneak in there, even a cat can sneak in there and pinch something that you didn't even know they'd got.
Mm.
So be careful. We don't want any trips to the emergency room.
I have one really cool tip for fencing. So we've had so many animals in our lives in different countries with different situations. Let's put it that way. And dogs, I don't care how big or small, know how to dig out of a fence. If your fence is straight up here, it goes to the bottom, like, you put up a wooden fence, and people tell me, oh, a dog can't get out of that. I'm like, oh, yeah, they can. They're just being polite and behave, you know. If you have a dog that wants to dig out, and it is one of those dogs that know how to do it, all they do is get tunnels underneath the fence. So here's a tip. It's called chicken wire. And I know you can make it look pretty. We've done this where you take your fence and you've got to somehow put chicken wire up, maybe a couple feet up, and then you dig, like you almost do a blanket underneath the ground, and then you like 2 feet under, and then you put like a whole stretch of chicken wire. So when they try to dig, they suddenly get to chicken wire and they can't really go that far. And then on top of the chicken wire, make sure you've got all the soil, plant something. So I would say that would be a good tip that we've had to deal with, because we've had a lot of rescue dogs in our lives. In fact, I think every single one has been, and they all come with, their own set of ways that they have lived and wanted to do, and they're used to living in the streets or whatever. But that is one thing to do, is chicken wire can be your friend, and you can cover it up by using all kinds of things, but you can cover it up so it's not an eyesore, and you can do that with the right plants. And so, just a thought, and because you can dig down under your fence and then into the garden. Does that make sense? Am I making sense, Angela? Like how it's almost like you fold the wire, the fencing itself, and go into the yard. Like you have to pull up a few feet down and a few feet in. You know what I mean? So it's turning into the garden.
It's making a barrier between them and their ability to dig. And it doesn't hurt them in any way, but it stops them getting down into the ground and escaping. That's the one thing we don't want them to do. We don't want them to escape.
No escaping. But it does work. And again, like I said, you can beautify it and no one will know. And you don't want your dogs to know. Don't let them see what you're doing, because they're smart. Some of them know what you're doing and saying, I see what you do. I know what you're doing. I know how to go to the end once you've done it, So, and I mean, I had cats that were feral cats that we adopted, and I was gardening and I was digging holes, for putting the new plants in there, and they thought, oh, you made a potty for me. Oh, thank you for my little toilet. And then they covered it up, So animals know what you're doing. They watch. But Angela, thank you. Always fun, always so fun. And we're getting to the warm weather. We're so excited about it because we do get to hang outside with dogs. And that is one of the best things on earth, is walking them and hanging outside. And when you know everything is ready for that and you're prepared for anything, you can actually breathe and enjoy it,
Yeah. So just be safe and have fun. And as you say, Lisa, enjoy your backyard, knowing that you've ticked all the boxes and made it a special place for you, your pets, and your whole family.
Good times are ahead, y'all. Thank you, everyone. Don't forget, go to trustedhousesitters.com. Check out their platform. It is awesome, awesome, awesome. If you like to travel and you want to make sure your babies are taken care of at home, that's a great option. If you like to travel and you love pets and you miss pets when you travel, another great option for those travelers. So check it out. And of course, everyone, we are here every third Wednesday. So stay tuned. Keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. Thank you so much, Angela, and happy spring.
Lisa. And travel safely.
Thanks for joining us here on Big Blend Radio's Pet Connection podcast. New episodes air every third Wednesday. Keep up with us at bigblendradio.com and learn more about the world of pet sitting at trustedhousesitters.com.